Cheers, everybody. So today I want to talk a little bit about a retrospective of COVID, going based off of the the Federal Reserve discussion, and how it all relates to Magic. You know, I'm going to try my best to translate it into terms that we all can understand, right? Or maybe just like your average worker, your average business person, something that makes sense to all of us, right? So first to start off by, how is the current economy doing, right? So if you're have your standard job and you're not in the like a finance industry, how do you know how the economy is doing in a rough sense, right? Well, the best indicators like the S&P 500. S&P 500 will show you how the top companies are performing and the price of those stocks. If the price of the stocks are high, it either means that the dollar is really weak or that they're making a lot of money, and that means typically people are working there and those people are making a lot of money and a lot of people are spending to buy those stocks and increase the price, right? Whenever you buy stuff, typically price goes up, and whenever you sell stuff, typically the price moves down. So it's sort of interesting because the stock market and that graph doesn't really represent what me and you would feel on a day-to-day basis. There are probably certain months or quarters where we're like, man, this quarter was really good, I made a lot of money. And then you look at the stock market and it's doing horrible. Or vice versa, you feel like, man, this quarter was really slow, and you look at the stock market and it's doing great. And you're like, how is everyone else being so successful in this time, right? So a better indicator is checking the graphs and the unemployment rate, rather than sort of basing it off of our own experiences. And if there's a difference in those experiences, there's usually like an opportunity to pivot, adjust something that we're doing, and try and mimic and not and copy some other strategies that are being successful for people, so that we can also be successful, right? It's better to just copy than to try and reinvent the wheel. So the Federal Reserve talks about, why did inflation go up? Why did it go down? How does this all affect unemployment? And what's the goal? So the goal for the United States is inflation of 2%. Now, should it be inflation of 2% across the board for every type of company? That's debatable. Maybe there's an argument to be made where, okay, some certain businesses should have this target inflation, some different type of businesses like IT or whatever should have a different target of inflation. But the general idea for the core inflation, which is like the overall inflation by the Federal Reserve, they just say 2%. They're not really too specific. It's sort of like overall movements, right? Overall actions that they do. So there was COVID in 2019, and obviously, the government shut down a lot of, restricted a lot of companies from operating, and the whole, you had to be, what's the word, an important business or whatever it's called. And then you had the CARES Act, which, shut down a bunch of the companies and laid off about 8 million people, right? So all these companies were not making money, so they couldn't be paying all their employees. That's what caused the layoff, right? And so because of that, there was a brief recession in 2020. And the Federal Reserve says, well, we don't want a slow recovery like we had in 2008, which took about like 4 years, like 3 or 4 years to recover, which in their mind is slow, but in the grand scheme of things, like I feel like it was perfectly natural. Because if you look from 2012 to up to COVID, 2018, 2019, it was like a perfectly gradual, nice, stable rise. Like dream scenario for everybody. So maybe that's like the perfect time of recovery, 4 years, but well, they didn't want that. They wanted something faster. So the government issued stimulus checks in 2020, and spending was really high, right? Spending was high because people were getting checks, but production was low because a lot of companies had still laid off a bunch of workers, and they didn't have the manpower, the capabilities to create all the product that people wanted. So a lot of them increased their prices to adjust for all these people spending. And also, because of COVID and all these laws, we had a lot of supply issues, like for homes, wood and building materials are super expensive because a lot of stuff comes from overseas. So if that stuff doesn't come in, you can't really produce the product that you want to make. If your building materials or supplies are in a ship somewhere, taking forever to get here because of all the checks and the sanitization and all that. So what happens when spending is super high, but the production of goods is sort of slow and low because everyone's waiting for stuff to come over? Well, you get really high inflation, which just means the cost of things was marked up like crazy. Because imagine you own a store, right? And you have 3 lamps, and you have 10 people waiting outside, and you're not getting any more lamps until a month from now. Instead of selling those lamps at $5, you're going to mark them up to $20. And maybe 7 of those 10 people are going to go somewhere else, but those 3 are still going to buy those lamps. Because you had so much demand, so many people wanting those lamps, that you could raise the price and get away with it. It's okay if you turned away a few customers, right? Because all those people had stimulus checks, right? We all did. So in April of 2021, the inflation spiked, and a sector that was really hit was cars, right? Because the chips and the motherboards for all the vehicles, because now everything's based off computers, right? That was coming from overseas, and that was in little supply, so it was very expensive. So it caused a lot of inflation. And the Federal Reserve, he says that, we thought that those high prices were only going to be contained in the cars, and maybe the building materials, because they felt that, once COVID blows over and once all the shipments can come back in, that the prices would go back to normal. And I think that is true if they, waited a little bit longer. But they waited just like about a year or two. And then what happened was the war overseas occurred with Russia and Ukraine. And that lowered our mortgage interest rates. It's really complicated, the whole way that it works with MBSs and treasuries and all that. But the end result is that when wars happen overseas, our interest rates and our mortgage interest rates go down. And when our rates go down, people spend even more. So while we were waiting for the supply to come back and the prices to normalize and go back down, wars were happening, and it caused rates to even go down and people to spend even more and prices to go even higher. So instead of waiting it out, they decided to increase the interest rate because they saw data that said, no longer is it just the cars are expensive, and no longer is it that the wood is expensive. They saw data that's saying everything was expensive, which is inflation, right? Everything becomes a little bit more. Rent is more expensive. Corn is more expensive. Milk, eggs, everything. So instead of waiting for that supply to recover naturally and people to see the opportunity of the high prices and create new businesses to try and capitalize off those high prices, which would put more supply into the market and lower the prices, instead they decided, let's increase the rates. So they increased the rate by 4% in 2022 and 1% in 2023. And that's where it has been. And they're saying that now they see unemployment ticking up a little bit. Why do they see unemployment ticking up a little bit? Well, when COVID occurred, there were a lot of efficiencies that happened, right? People were working from home. IT programs became so much better because people were using them more often. They became optimized. Workloads became optimized. Maybe AI has been introduced into certain things that people now leave their job, and it takes time for them. These people that lost their job to AI, it's not like they're never going to get a job again. It just takes time for them to go out and get a degree or some kind of training or fellowship in order to rejoin the workforce in a sector that works. Let's say like maintenance of the AI, right? Okay, your job gets taken away by AI. Okay, sort of respec and go into like maintenance, right? IT maintenance, or there's a million solutions, but it just takes time for people to do that. And so the Federal Reserve said, well, that's what we see right now. We see unemployment slowly increasing, and so a lot of people are thinking, oh, they're probably going to lower the rates, right? Again. So what does that mean for us, like me and you, regular people that collect magic and just work our jobs? Right now, it doesn't mean much for us because there's no real catastrophe or emergency that's happening right now, and the market is stable right now until it isn't, right? Once things go either super high or super low, depending on all the factors, when it's not stable, that's when we look for opportunities, right? If inflation is high and prices are high, look for work that's commission based, right? I have a mortgage company licensed in Texas and Oklahoma. Mortgage license costs $300, and you get paid based off a percentage of the loan amount. So if homes are more expensive, commission goes up because it's based off a percentage of that, right? So when inflation is really high, there are opportunities where you can work in certain industries where it maybe takes 3 months or 2 months to get a mortgage license, and you can transition to that and make a lot of money off of that opportunity. On the other hand, and what else is a good idea when it's high? And this is not investment advice. This is just something that I would do, right? In these scenarios, use that money that while you're making during that period of high inflation, where maybe you have a commission job, to get experience or a license in like a healthcare field, something that you can transition to when the market goes bad, right? Something that's stable income and all that. Pay off your debts whenever inflation is high. Let's say you get a raise and $2 nowadays is worth $1 a year ago or whatever. Well, your debts are still based off the $1 from a year ago, right? Your home mortgage is still based off of the money when you bought it. It's that the balance. So if you're making more money now, you want to pay off all the debts during high inflation, and do your required minimums on your investments. Even if stuff's super expensive, still always put your minimum amounts towards your retirement, your 401k, your IRA, and your whole life policies. And then if prices crash and we go into a recession, what opportunities do you look for? Well, we look for purchasing opportunities, right? Look all the things that you wanted to buy. That's probably the best time to buy all the things you ever wanted, right? Or you want to, maybe some prices of magic crash, that's a perfect time to buy, right? So right now we're in a stable market, which means it's a good time to buy and a good time to sell. And so I'm going to use this moment to shill a little bit for myself. Right now I got a promo going on in the comments, which is the 12 collector boosters, diversify. What do we have? We got Modern Horizons 3, Unfinity, Battle for Baulders Gate, Dungeons and Dragons. We got Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, 4 of those. We've got Wilds of Eldraine. On all these are collectors. March of the Machines Aftermath, Ravnica Remastered, and 2 Fallouts, right? So you got a little bit of everything. You got a little bit of Universes Beyond. You got a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons. You got a little bit of cool standard sets like Wilds of Eldraine with anime. And come on this journey with me. I'm going to be doing updates every 6 months on the prices of those boxes and seeing how they're going. And I'll do updates every 6 months all the way from now until 8 to 10 years from now. And I'll show in every video, my stock that I have, that I'm going on this journey together with y'all. And I think it's going to be really exciting. Like, I'm super excited. I already have a few people who have purchased from me, and I shipped them out to them. One of them was a local purchase. So yeah, I'm really excited to go on this journey together with everyone. It's gonna be a lot of fun.